Wars The Last Jedi is the 8th installment in the Skywalker saga, and I'm not going to go too much more into the plot than that. I could, but I don't really want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen the movie. It's been out for over a week now, you've probably already seen the film, but just in case you haven't, and just in case you'd rather a spoiler-free review from me, I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. I'm not going to go into any spoilers. Now, what I first have to address right off the bat is that this has become one of the most divisive Star Wars films of all time. Who would have thought that was going to happen? Because everyone thought this was going to become the new Empire Strikes Back. And it's actually ended up becoming one of the most controversial and divisive Star Wars films ever made. Really bizarre. Like, there's some people that absolutely love this film, think it's one of the best Star Wars films ever made, and there's some people that really hate it and really didn't like it and really take it against it. And then there's also a lot of people in the middle that I feel very mixed on it. I don't really know what to think. And I did have some problems with this film, and there are some things that I didn't like about it, but I'm leaning a lot more to the positive side than I am to the negative. I do think this was a really great film, one of the best Star Wars films, I think. I'm not really sure where I'd rank it. I can't really make up my mind on that after just one viewing. I need to see it at least 2 or 3 more times, but I do think this is probably one of the best Star Wars films. Like I said, my problems notwithstanding, I did love this film and I thought it was really great. And I'll get into those few problems I have later, but they are few and far between. They're only a few minor little things, really. For the most part, I really love this film. And although I love Force Awakens, and maybe I like Force Awakens a little bit more, I don't want to immediately start comparing it to other films, but I think Force Awakens was the more streamlined film, was the tighter, more faster paced, more kind of focused film that was more funny, more entertaining. But I do really like this film for how unpredictable it was, because my only minor gripe with The Force Awakens, and I never brought this up in previous videos, but my only minor gripe with The Force Awakens was that it was predictable. Now, that wasn't a problem for me because I love The Force Awakens. I really enjoyed myself watching that movie and I thought it was real great fun, but it was very predictable. Nothing in that movie shocked or surprised me. Everything that happened I saw coming immediately before it happened. You know, it was very predictable. That didn't ruin the film for me. I still thoroughly enjoyed myself watching that movie and I thought it was a really great film, but it was very predictable and I could always see where it was going to go next. This film was anything but predictable, and so that's why I kind of maybe like it a little bit more. It's hard because I don't really have any problems with The Force Awakens. With this, I do have a few problems, but what I loved most about it was that it was so unpredictable. People say about The Force Awakens that it was just like a rehash. I don't think that. It did have some similarities to A New Hope for sure. There were some plot beats that were reminiscent and there were some familiarities to other Star Wars films for sure. But I can still see why some people would say that, but with this film, it was definitely not a rehash of any other Star Wars film. This isn't just like exactly the same as Empire Strikes Back, for instance. It's very much its own film that stands on its own. It's actually a really great character-driven drama in its own right that just happens to be this epic, awesome Star Wars film, and I really like that, and I really like what Rian Johnson brought to this film. It almost felt like a standalone kind of character drama that just happened to be the middle chapter of this epic kind of trilogy in this big franchise film, and I really like that. I really like when directors can come into a big franchise and make a film that feels like its own thing, that works on its own, whilst at the same time being part of this much bigger, you know, ongoing series. Inevitably, it's going to turn off a lot of the hardcore Star Wars fanboys and purists. I'm not really one of those people. I don't consider myself a real hardcore Star Wars fan. I don't understand why there's a lot of rage against this film. Why there's a lot of, you know, things that are really angering and annoying the hardcore, you know, fans and purists. For me, I liked it because of that. You know, I liked it because it was so different, because it played out in new, exciting and unpredictable ways. That's what I like most about this film, and it really confuses me why the fanboys hate Force Awakens because it was just predictable and safe and did things we've already seen before, and now they hate The Last Jedi because it was different and did things we haven't seen before. It's like they just can't seem to make up their minds. I don't think you'll ever please these kind of fanboys, these butthurt fanboys. They just hate things just for the sake of hating it. I mean, I don't know, because they hated Force Awakens because it was really safe and predictable and was like a rehash of A New Hope, and then they hate this because it was completely different and did new, unpredictable things. You just can't please them, I suppose. But I really like this movie because it was so different, because it played out in unpredictable ways. Like I said, that was my only minor gripe with The Force Awakens. As much as I enjoyed that movie, and you know, it wasn't to the detriment of the film, I don't think, but it was very predictable. This was anything but predictable, and every time you thought something was going to happen in a certain way, it happened in a different way. And those are the kind of things that happen that have kind of really, you know, annoyed the purists and the hardcore fanboys. But I liked it when the movie did that, because for me, it wasn't just being unpredictable and subverting expectations just for the sake of it. It was being unpredictable in a way that actually worked dramatically and made sense for who these characters are. And as soon as it happened, as soon as something unpredictable happened, as soon as it went against your expectations, I was like, I really like that. That actually makes a whole lot more sense. And they could have, gone into what the fans wanted, but I just don't know if it would have worked nearly as well as what they actually did in the finished film, because when they did something that was very unpredictable, and I know I'm being very vague here, I'm not talking about specifics, but you probably know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie, but when the film did something that was kind of subverting your expectations, even though it did take you aback at first, I actually really admire the director, Rian Johnson, and the people behind this film for being brave enough to take risks and do those things, because, like I said, it wasn't just being unpredictable for the sake of it. It was being unpredictable, but it was working dramatically, and it was making sense for who those characters are. And then whenever you sat back and thought about it, you were like, it actually makes so much more sense that happened, and they didn't do it this way. It didn't play into what the fans wanted. It didn't really care. It was just doing its own thing, and it didn't care about what people thought. And I actually really like that. It's gonna really anger and annoy a lot of the fanboys, and it has, but for me, I really liked it because of that. And of course, I've got to talk about the direction by Rian Johnson. I'm a big fan of Rian Johnson. I saw Looper a few years ago, and I think that's one of the best science fiction films to come out this century. I think it's that good. If you haven't seen Looper, I definitely recommend checking that out. And when it was first announced he was going to be directing episode 8, I was so unbelievably excited. And although this isn't like the most radically different, franchise film you've ever seen, it does feel very much like a Rian Johnson film. And I love it when a director is able to come into a big franchise such as Star Wars and put his own stamp on it and make a film that feels like its own thing. It does feel like a Star Wars film very much, but it also feels a lot like a Rian Johnson film as well. And whenever a director comes into a franchise like Star Wars, it's never going to feel 100% like their movie, because it is a big franchise run by big corporations. So whenever a director comes in, it's always a director for hire. But I still do love the fact that Rian Johnson was able to put his stamp on it, and what he did with this movie I thought was incredible. I'm not for one second saying this is the best Star Wars movie of all time or anything like that, but I do think there's an argument to be made that this is the best directed Star Wars movie. I think Rian Johnson did an incredible job as far as the directing of this film is concerned. He directed the hell out of it. I thought it was so well done. It wasn't like 100% his movie, because it is this big, corporate franchise film, but I loved what he did with this movie as far as the direction was concerned. I think it is maybe the best directed Star Wars movie I've ever seen. I thought it was incredible, and I think it's one of the best shot Star Wars movies I've ever seen. It was stunningly shot, this film. So many incredible jaw-dropping sequences, really breathtaking from a visual standpoint. I loved the cinematography in this film. I don't think it's got a shot of being nominated for any big Oscars, but I could make an argument for it being nominated for cinematography, because it was a stunningly shot film. There were so many sequences that just left my jaw on the floor. There was an incredible opening action sequence that I thought was amazing, that really took me back and caught me off guard. And I think this film also features, quite possibly, at least in my opinion, the best lightsaber battle ever put to film. I mean, it's not actually two lightsabers going against one another, it's two characters with lightsabers fighting other people, but I think that action sequence was maybe the best lightsaber battle we've ever seen put to film. I thought it was absolutely incredible, really well shot, really well choreographed in the way that felt real and powerful and impactful, because a lot of people defend the prequels by saying, oh well, at least a lightsaber fight at the end of Phantom Menace was cool. But was it though? All the lightsaber fights in the prequels just felt way too staged to me. They felt just way too choreographed. It was like you're just watching a dance and not actually fighting. It just felt way too kind of choreographed and rehearsed. Whereas the battle in this film felt so much more kind of just raw and real, and you're just so invested, and it was just so incredibly well shot with these long, wide takes that you're able to see everything that's going down. And that's what really set this apart from other Star Wars movies as far as the action sequences were concerned. We had these really breathtaking kind of epic wide shots as far as the space battles are concerned, or lightsaber battles, that made the action sequences so much more jaw-dropping and breathtaking to watch, because you could really see it all and it could really take it all in. You can actually watch it and follow it and really kind of feel the impact of everything on screen. And that's what I thought was so great about this film as far as the action was concerned. It's not got as much action as you'd probably expect. Like I said, it was almost like a character drama really, but whenever we do get an action sequence, it is so incredible, so well shot, beautifully directed, and stunningly executed, to the point where these are some of the best action sequences I've ever seen in a Star Wars movie. And of course, I've got to talk about the performances by the cast. Everyone is amazing. It goes without saying, obviously Mark Hamill, everyone's saying this is like the best performance he's ever given, and yeah, he is really great in this movie as Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker was never really my favourite character, I'm not like as big a fan of that character as a lot of other people are, even though, obviously he is amazing, and Mark Hamill in that role is amazing, and he is amazing in this film, so there we go. There's been a lot of controversy over the interpretation of Luke Skywalker in this film, and all I have to say is that I liked it, I think it worked, and I think people are overblowing it a little bit. It was still Luke Skywalker, but it was a very different version of Luke Skywalker, where it's him 30 years later, and for me that makes sense. If he was exactly the same as he was at the end of Return of the Jedi here, it just wouldn't have worked, because no one's exactly the same 30 years later. Everybody changes, even if you're Luke Skywalker. It made sense that he's slightly different now, he's not exactly the same person as he was at the end of Return of the Jedi, and for me it worked, and Mark Hamill played it brilliantly. And also I just love Daisy Ridley as Rey. Rey is like my favourite character. I think she's absolutely fantastic, and I love Daisy Ridley in that role, and I love what they did with the character of Rey in this film, and her story and her arc and certain things that are revealed. I think it was really well done, and I just think she's amazing in that role, and I absolutely love Rey. And of course Carrie Fisher as General Leia is incredible as well in her final role in a Star Wars movie. Everyone's great, it goes without saying that everyone's great in their roles. I loved that this movie very much focused on the characters. It was almost, like I said, like a character-driven drama, and the fact that it went deeper into the characters, including Kylo Ren, who I love, by the way. I think I liked him even more in this than The Force Awakens. All the characters are in this like grey area. Everyone's got this kind of conflict within them, and it's very much a kind of epic film, kind of from a psychological, internal point of view, as well as it being an epic film from a kind of external kind of point of view as far as the action is concerned, and I really like that. So all the stakes as far as the characters and what they're all experiencing as far as people is just as epic and important as what's going on as far as all the big action stuff is concerned, and that's what I really liked. And finally, it goes without saying, the sound design, as always in every Star Wars movie, is absolutely incredible, and the John Williams score, it's just something about every Star Wars movie has. It makes it feel like an event, it feels like an experience, it really helps to suck you into the world of the film, and there really is nothing else like Star Wars music. And the sound design, as I said, was all incredible. The design of this movie from every aspect was flawless. The sound design, the set design, everything was incredible. But going into my negatives, a lot of people have brought up the Finn and Rose subplot as something that was the weaker part of the movie, and I do agree to an extent. I didn't dislike the subplot entirely, but just the sequence where they go off to this casino on this planet, that whole extended sequence I felt was completely unnecessary, didn't need to be in the film. It was like this really out of place, unnecessary detour that kind of just didn't need to be in the film, I thought. I think they could have worked around it really easily by just not having to go on this kind of convoluted detour that kind of bogged the film down. I didn't dislike it, it just felt like it was from another film, and it just felt like they could have cut it out and just not had it in the film and just done something else that was much more kind of quicker and tighter and faster and more streamlined and focused and driven to the story, rather than going off on this detour to this other planet, to this casino place. And I just didn't feel like they needed to do that. It just felt out of place and unnecessary, and that was the thing that I disliked most about this film. Like I said, I didn't dislike the sequence, it just didn't feel like it needed to be in the film, and it just felt like they could have lifted that out and walked around that by doing something that was a lot more streamlined and focused to the central story, instead of going off on this really kind of pointless, unnecessary detour that kind of really bogged the film down. That was my major negative. Some of the kind of the storylines throughout the movie do feel a little bit disparate and disconnected at certain points, but then they all converge and overlap towards the end. That was really satisfying for me, and it really worked. If that didn't happen, I would have had a problem with it, but towards the end of the movie, in the third act, they all kind of converge and overlap, and it does really work. So aside from a few minor negatives, I really love this movie, and it's hard where I'd rank it, because like I said, I didn't really have anything that I disliked about The Force Awakens, whereas this, that whole extended sequence going off to that casino planet, I just didn't think that needed to be in the movie. But that aside, I really love this movie, and although I think Star Wars The Force Awakens was maybe the more kind of funny and entertaining movie, was the more kind of streamlined and focused and tighter film, there was stuff in this movie that I liked a whole lot more than anything in The Force Awakens, and there's stuff in this movie that I like more than any Star Wars film we've ever had. So I'd have to watch it a few more times to decide where I want to place it, because there's stuff I dislike I might like more the second time round, or I might like less, I don't know, so I have to wait for a second viewing. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I think Rian Johnson did an incredible job as far as the directing is concerned. I think one of the best directed Star Wars movies we've ever seen. Stunning from a visual standpoint. Fantastic performances all round. A really great, really unpredictable story that really worked dramatically, subverted your expectations in a really interesting, fresh and exciting way. I really loved this movie. Aside from the few problems I had, I really enjoyed it and I thought it was really great. So overall, I'm going to give Star Wars The Last Jedi a very low but very well deserving 5 stars. And there we have it, that wraps up my review of Star Wars The Last Jedi. What do you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you somewhere in the middle? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more. If you missed my last review, be sure to go ahead and click over here to catch up on my last review, or perhaps down here to catch up on another one of my recent videos. But with that said, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.